Our message, excuse me. Our message today is out of the Gospel of John, starting at chapter 2, verse 1. This is about discipleship. And the third day, there was a marriage in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Both Jesus was called and his disciples to the marriage. Now this is interesting because he hadn't started his ministry at this point. He had disciples, but he hadn't done any signs, any wonders, any of that. In discipleship in the Middle East, and at this time, was kind of a unique kind of situation. It was schooling. It wasn't so much schooling in the context of classroom, but it was schooling in spiritual issues. So you followed a leader, and the people that followed that leader were disciples. Now the leader, it wasn't so much that they sat down and taught them things. They learned by example. So it's very much different than what we expect today. Excuse me. The closest thing that we'd have to discipleship today would be like an apprentice program, where you have a master in the field, like a journeyman, and you come into and you learn under them how to do things. But discipleship is different because it's not a schooling and it's not a practicing thing. Discipleship is, you think, well, it's observation, it's watching. But discipleship is much more than that. It's experiencing. Now, Jesus was called and his disciples to this marriage. Well, what's that got to do with discipleship? I mean, why would they go with him to a marriage? Because, first of all, you have to understand, as a disciple of Jesus, he's going to take you places you never expected to go. And you're going to interface with people you never expected to have contact with. You're going to go places you just never expected. Because this is the way of discipleship. Jesus brings you places to see things and to do things you never would have expected. So he and his disciples were called to this marriage. Now, most people, they think, well, I'm going to a marriage. And so I'm going to go, I'll have a good time, celebrate with the... But discipleship isn't about that. With discipleship, it's not about the goal, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. So you never know what to expect. Yes, you're going to a wedding, but it's never about the wedding. And so Jesus has called his disciples to marriage, and verse 3 is when it starts to get very interesting. When they wanted wine, the mother of Jesus saith unto him, they have no wine. This is interesting. This is the mother of Jesus saying they don't have wine. She's not asking him for anything. She didn't ask him. She just simply says to him, they have no wine. This is the mother of Jesus identifying a need. She doesn't ask him anything specific. Why? Because she knows who he is. She knows when you're in the presence of God, you don't need to ask for something specific. They have no wine. She doesn't know what he's going to do. So she leaves it with him, and she just says they have no wine. Verse 4, Jesus says to her, woman, what have I to do with you? Mine hour is not yet come. He doesn't address her as his mother. Now, as the son of Mary, he had no power. But as the son of God, he has power. But as the son of God, Mary is not his mother. Mary is a woman. That's why it's important that he address her not as mother, but as woman. It's not that he's being disrespectful to her, but he's acknowledging what she's talking about. She identified a need, and he's saying, basically, I'm here. And he's saying to her, what have I to do with you? My time isn't yet. This was not the appointed time for him to start his ministry. But guess what? His mother didn't say anything more to him. This is beautiful. Verse 5. His mother saith unto the servants, whatsoever he saith for you to do, do it. That's marvelous. Why is that marvelous? It's a statement of faith. She didn't even have to ask. She knew that to ask could have penned him in, could have tied his hands. So she doesn't ask. She just identifies the need. And then she says to the servants, whatever he says to do, just do it. Because she knew who he was. She knew it was the Son of God talking to her. And she knew that whatever he said was going to happen. So she simply said, whatever he tells you to do it. Now that's faith. The only faith I see anywhere close to that is where the Roman centurion, he says, just speak the word and I know what's going to happen. Here she just says, whatever he says to do, just do it. Well, he steps up and he solves the problem. Just like she asked. Well, she didn't ask. Just as she identified the problem, and he took care of the problem. Why did he take care of the problem? Because she addressed him not as her son, but as the Son of God. And she had absolute faith in what he was going to tell them to do. When I say absolute faith, she knew he was going to solve the problem. And she didn't know how he was going to solve the problem, but she knew the problem was going to get solved. It's a beautiful manifestation of faith. Just do it. And then he gave the directions. Well, know the rest of it. Turn the water into wine. Why is this so important? This was not about the wine. This wasn't about Mary. And it wasn't about Jesus. Where did we start? Disciples. This was a manifestation of faith for the disciples to experience. The disciples of Jesus, it was just manifested to them that this is the Son of God. It was manifested to them that Jesus can turn water into wine. It was manifested faith that can simply identify a problem, can get an answer to it. And that's why the disciples were called with Jesus to the wedding. Not for the wedding, not for Mary, not for Jesus, but to see the Son of God do a miracle. So how does that help the disciples? Not at all. In the natural, not at all. The funny thing about discipleship is, when you really are truly a disciple, you feel useless. Okay. You feel like you're not doing anything and you have no value because you can't do anything. That's real discipleship. And you don't see that that's going to change. Because, after all, you're a disciple. And you know what? Nothing happened with them until Jesus sent them out. When he sent them out, then something happened. But until that time, they were talking, they were arguing, they were vying for position, blah, blah, blah. And it didn't seem that they were getting anything. But that's the way true discipleship works. Why? Because it's the nature of the relationship. They put their trust in Jesus to follow him, to learn not natural things. He was a carpenter. He wasn't teaching them carpentry. It wasn't to learn natural things, it was to learn the spiritual things, to learn how to walk in the Spirit, to learn how to work the works of God. You can't do that in the natural. So when you are a disciple, you're going to learn in the natural. It's like you are useless. And you feel useless because there's nothing that you can do in the flesh. Nothing. You can't do it. But the beautiful thing is that Jesus in you can make it happen.
Amen.
The Jesus in you can give you an A on the test you know you really should have flunked. The Jesus in you can take you through a situation you are absolutely sure you could never make it through. To give you strength to do what you just can't do. To help you through the negative stuff, the anger, the unforgiveness. He's there to take you through. But you got to have that relationship, that discipleship relationship. I'm not talking about being saved, accepting Jesus as your Lord and personal Savior. Yes, that'll get you into heaven. But it doesn't get you any power in this life. If you want to manifest the power of God in this life, you have to be a disciple of Jesus. And that's the challenge. Can you trust your life into His hands? To listen to what He has to say, to do what He asks you to do, and to simply observe, most of all, what He's doing and not do it yourself. That's the challenge, and that's my message for today.